Most history teaches us that empires fade. Rome spent centuries fracturing into smaller, functional successor states. The Neo-Assyrian Empire followed a different trajectory. It was the undisputed superpower of the ancient world, yet when its government fell, it left no successor states behind. While Rome's collapse was a slow dissolution, Assyria's end was a total operational failure. This collapse was the result of an administrative system over-engineered for central control. To understand how the ultimate superpower vanished in a matter of months, we must view its capital not as a political center, but as an overloaded central processor. By the 7th century BC, Sennacherib had transformed Nineveh into the largest urban center on Earth. The imperial residence was named the Palace Without Rival. It contained 80 rooms, supported by solid bronze columns resting on 43-ton bronze lions. Sustaining this dense population in an arid climate required massive civil engineering. The Assyrians built a staggering network of aqueducts and irrigation canals to force water into the city's public parks and gardens. Sennacherib even abandoned his father's recently completed capital, relocating all valuable administrators, wealth, and military assets directly behind Nineveh's walls. Nineveh functioned as a physical manifestation of absolute control. It was an engineering marvel that required continuous, massive resource inputs to stave off collapse. This hyper-efficiency created a fatal paradox. Achieving maximum control at the center required stripping the periphery of all independent power. This map illustrates the extraction machine. Assyrian kings engineered a system dedicated to dragging wealth, command, and labor from the outer territories into Nineveh. Subjugated provinces were left with no horizontal connections. Their local economies dimmed, functioning only as resource pipelines. This architecture acts as a geopolitical black hole. The sheer density at the center starves and degrades the surrounding landscape. Stripping these regions generated immense hostility among the Babylonians, Elamites, and Medes. They were kept in line exclusively by the threat of central military force deployed from Nineveh. By treating the empire as a massive extraction machine to feed a single city, the Assyrians built a structure incredibly heavy at the top and entirely hollow everywhere else. The true fatal vulnerability of the Nineveh operating system was located deep inside its massive administrative core, the Library of Ashurbanipal. This library was the centralized server room of an Iron Age surveillance state, housing the operational data required to run the empire. The sheer volume of data housed here shows the scale of the operation. The shelves held over 30,000 inscribed clay tablets, consisting of meticulously formatted tax ledgers, foreign correspondence, and raw intelligence reports sent in from spies on the frontier. The empire's ability to calculate taxes, suppress rebellions, and deploy armies relied entirely on the uninterrupted processing of the clay data stored within these specific walls. The most highly guarded subset of this data was the divination texts and omen reports. The Assyrians utilized divination as a form of predictive modeling for imperial risk management. Scholars compiled centuries of historical correlations, pairing specific celestial and meteorological events with economic outcomes or military threats. They use this data to output actionable directives for the king. The accuracy of these models was painstakingly verified, checked, and collated by a strict hierarchy of scribes and chief exorcists to ensure the authorized version was flawless. The Assyrian state relied entirely on this algorithm to navigate threats. The geopolitical software of the entire empire was localized to the capital. Ashurbanipal aggressively centralized this intellectual property. When he conquered Babylon, he confiscated private libraries from their priests and scholars, physically moving the data to Nineveh. This maps a single point of failure. In this rigid hub-and-spoke system, all intelligence routed exclusively through one central processor. The fatal flaw? Provincial governors couldn't coordinate with each other. They only received instructions from the center. By housing all intelligence, algorithms, and administrative records in one physical location, the Assyrians ensured that if the library went offline, the empire would instantly lose its memory. The system was tested immediately after Ashurbanipal's death. A series of bitter succession wars fractured the royal family, distracting the central command. Recognizing this distraction, the exploited periphery seized their chance. A hostile coalition of Medes, Babylonians, and Scythians formed, united by an understanding of the center's structural vulnerability. In August 612 BC, the massive hostile coalition launched a catastrophic, fully coordinated siege against Nineveh's massive walls. Their objective was the complete physical destruction of the bureaucratic apparatus that had stripped their lands. The coalition did not aim to capture and utilize an operational capital. They launched a deliberate effort to permanently sever the empire's central processing unit. After 3 months, the coalition breached the defenses. They entered the palace and directly targeted the archives. The library archives were incinerated as the roofs collapsed. 30,000 clay tablets shattered, their inscriptions baking into the ruins. Looking back at the network map, that localized fire triggered an immediate geopolitical consequence. Nineveh went completely dark. Lacking independent architecture, military reserves, or cross-communication, the provincial nodes instantly disconnected and vanished from the map. Because the Assyrians built no redundant backups and no decentralized command centers, the destruction of their physical servers meant the end of the imperial operating system. The Roman model of decline allowed its provinces to survive and adapt because its infrastructure was somewhat redundant. The Assyrian model resulted in an instantaneous hardware failure. The Neo-Assyrians engineered the most efficient extraction machine of the ancient world, but by consolidating all command into a single physical location, they created a system that could be disabled with a single breach.